great to have you on, and obviously here to talk about your new signing with MLW, Major League Wrestling. What do you think about this huge, huge show, FIGHTLAND, going on February 1st, this Saturday, at the world-famous 2300 Arena in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania?
I think people are going to get their money's worth.
What is up with the signing with MLW? I think that, that's just one of those things where it's like, wow, MLW is really catching a lot of fire. They're really cooking with gas. They're really getting very, very good. What was your thoughts on signing with MLW?
Precisely what you just said. I mean, you literally took the words right out of my mouth. MLW has had a lot of momentum due to the level of commitment that everyone has from A to Z on making it the best show possible when people come to see it. And getting on board with a roster and a team like that is paramount to finding your own individual success in this industry. So very happy to be on board, so to speak.
So obviously, talking about FIGHTLAND this Saturday, and we mentioned Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, what are your thoughts of being in that iconic building, formerly known as DCW Arena?
I know that building very well, and I know Philly very well, and I've beaten up a lot of people and broken a lot of bones and saw human bodies in that place, and everybody knows and everybody remembers. So it'll be like coming home.
What are your thoughts on, obviously, the opponent for tonight, the filthy one himself, Filthy Tom Lawler?
I don't think they could have picked a better person for me to be in the ring with in order for the both of us to showcase our wheelhouse of talent, so to speak. Tom is a shooter, he's a professional mixed martial arts fighter, and he's an excellent professional wrestler. And I think that people are going to get something very special out of the both of us that night.
What's so unique about guys that go from MMA to pro wrestling, and how a lot of them, like Filthy Tom Lawler, have had such great success?
I think it's very easy to identify what that is. I mean, if you understand the nature of the industry, it's sports entertainment. There is an air of legitimacy that really complements what we're doing. So if you come from a legitimate background, that translates very seamlessly if you really love what you're doing. I've seen a lot of professional athletes from other sports and other forms of sports entertainment come into pro wrestling and it didn't work out, but I think that has to do with the fact that they probably became fans of what this is maybe later on in their lives. Unlike some people who grow up and really love this. And then, there are other people that become fans later on in their lives and attempt to do this and excel at it. But it's very rare, few, far between. Where Tom falls in that category, I'm under the impression he's always been a fan of professional wrestling growing up. So I would attribute his success to his hard work, the reps and time that he puts into what he loves and cares about, and being a hardworking athlete.
Going into a matchup like this, what's the game plan? What are your thoughts? Is it just going to be, submission, striking? What's your thoughts when you're going into a match like that?
I'm going to take whatever Tom gives me, and I'm going to use it against him. I couldn't tell you how the match is going to start. Couldn't tell you how it's going to go, and I couldn't tell you how it's going to end. It would be really presumptuous and foolish to even attempt to try to hypothesize how this is going to go, because Tom could do the complete opposite of what you'd think he'd be doing. Tom might decide to hit me with a chair on the way down. Then what? You know what I mean? Anything can happen. It's FIGHTLAND. It's a 2300 arena that brings out a very crazy energy out of people. I'm ready for anything and everything.
What do you think about that being the debut match? I mean, that's like the statement. It's like, wow, okay, maybe a debut against a lesser guy and, you go over or whatever, and that's great. But what do you think about a debut with a company as big as MLW is becoming and it being against Tom Lawler? I mean, that's some pretty big shoes to fill right away.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a multi-time world heavyweight champion, and I've won championship titles in almost every single company I've ever been in. I've wrestled all over the world in every single major country in the world, and I've wrestled for companies like Lucha Underground, AAA Lucha Libre Worldwide, which has an incredible level of distribution all over the world and almost every single Latin American-speaking country, and competed in Bloodsport. I've been very successful there, and a variety of other UWFI shoot pro wrestling platforms and so forth. So, yeah, it's big shoes to fill, but I've been wearing big shoes for a long time, so they fit just fine.
Yeah, I mean, to say the least, you've been kind of dominating the scene all over the place. And I was saying, hottest free agent in the game, just really, really making a huge name for yourself over the last couple of years. Is that something that you enjoy, kind of like the world traveler, dominating wherever you go, whether it be Mexico, United States? Like, is that something that you enjoy, kind of the traveling part and just kind of really honing your craft everywhere?
Absolutely. I mean, I get to travel the world for a living. I mean, this is incredible. I mean, most people go their whole lives, barely ever even leaving the state or province they live in. I've been all over the world. People see the value in what I am able to contribute and are willing to fly me to different continents to entertain and engage and compete. I mean, for me, it doesn't get any better than that.
And I think so many people have their eyes on you. I mean, there was obviously some controversy with the last company, and it kind of was up in the air. It's like, wow, well, where will he land? Where will he go next? And it is pretty cool to see. It's like, wow, okay, MLW, who's been really kind of cutting edge and really kind of dominant as far as really making a big name for themselves and kind of cementing themselves into that number 3 spot, or kind of moving into that major ranking in the wrestling world. Is that something you're like, okay, I want to, quote unquote, no pun intended, really, but make an impact, but really make a big splash?
I mean, sure. And I've stated that before. I've been following the developments, even from the early times, the early developments of MLW, and I had a feeling that they were going to excel a lot faster than a lot of other companies that were attempting to compete with them at the time. It's just a feeling. Sometimes it's a vibe. You can just look at things. You get a feel for it. I mean, I'm not surprised at the success that MLW has found. Like, I'm really not at all. I mean, there's so many of the right pieces, people, and places were there to begin with for this to happen. And like I said, I've just seen a very strong level of commitment from everyone on board to making this place what it is today.
Now, you say that, and obviously that means you've been keeping your eye on MLW and things like that. But when you actually meet Court Bauer and you're talking to the executives at MLW, what was you said you kind of had a feel and a vibe, but what was something that kind of like turned the table for you? You're like, wow, MLW is where I'm gonna really make a statement.
I mean, I just chose to do it. I mean, I know that anywhere I go, I'll be able to make a statement. I know pro wrestling fans, and I know how to make regular average people into pro wrestling fans. That's been my specialty. Being able to appease people that watch pro wrestling, I can do that because I'm still one of them. I know what they want to see. I've taken a great joy in turning people into pro wrestling fans. So just as much as it would be beneficial for me to be there, it will be even more beneficial for them to have me there, because there are certain things that I can do that other professional wrestlers are not able to do or haven't figured out how to do yet. I think the most valuable players in this industry are the people who can turn non-wrestling fans into wrestling fans, and I'm one of them.
There's no doubt about that. I totally agree. And looking at the landscape of MLW, is there anybody out there you're looking, you're like, man, I want to face this guy? I mean, there's got to be guys that you want to face in MLW, right?
No, I was going to beat up a few referees. I was going to hit a commentator with a chair. I'm trying to be different. Trying to do things differently. Maybe somebody at the T-shirt stand. I mean, has he ever been powerbombed before? Has he ever been powerbombed through the table he works at every day? These are the philosophical questions I ask myself. I mean, to be honest with you, I think any match in MLW is a great match for me. And that's not a cop-out. I just mean I literally am certain that I can steal the show with anybody. You put me in there with anybody, Jimmy Havoc, Hammerstone, MJF, I mean, you name it. Pillman and I would rip the whole place up. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And Tom and I are going to do that. We will be the talk of the show, I guarantee it.
Think of Davey Boy Smith Jr., low key as well. I mean, those are matchups that stick out in my mind.
Right, absolutely.
Now, what is the deal with MLW? Obviously, the debut match, Tom Lawler, Philadelphia, is going to be huge at the 2300 Arena for FIGHTLAND. But what's the deal? I mean, is it long term? Is it short term? Or is there a deal with MLW?
Time will tell. I don't think I would like to go into too much on the specifics of what I agreed to. I don't even think it's really relevant at that point anyways. The fact of the matter is I'm going to be at FIGHTLAND, and that is the number one thing I am focusing on right now with the exception of, all things being relevant.
Do you see, yourself there long term, or you're just literally looking at this and then seeing how it goes, and then you're going to play off of that?
I think that it's going to be a feeling out process, and time will tell. We'll see.
As far as you and Tom Lawler, and just thinking of stylistically, it's definitely going to be a lot of MMA influence and stuff like that. Where did your kind of that style and that training and you being able to be a submission guy, but you did a lot of striking and, like we said, UWFI style, the blood sport, obviously very successful. What is it about that style that kind of lends itself to you?
Well, I grew up in a household where, I had people in the service in my household, and martial arts and combat sports were welcomed. I grew up in a family full of wrestlers, judo players, and boxers. So that was just kind of in our family culture. I come from a very big family, and not only the men, but the women also know how to fight. So coming up in a household like that, I've always been attracted to combat or combat sports. So naturally, one day when I found UWFI, I was just completely romanced to it. I thought it was amazing. And prior to that, I was a fan of WWF growing up, which is now WWE, for anyone who's listening, is unfamiliar with the current landscape. I was a fan of that and ECW and All Japan Pro Wrestling and New Japan and all that stuff. I think that on a typical 8 to 12 match card, there is a lot of redundancies, and I think that you will see a lot of the same things match per match, just on a general card in a general sense. I think that there's very few people in the business nowadays in the common era versus how it used to be that are able to apply the educated, legitimate aspect of it. I've said this before and I'll say it again. There's a lot of different genres of professional wrestling, from comedy to strong style, lucha libre, and now the direction everything's going in, which is kind of a hybrid lucha libre style. There's very few people actually that have a catch wrestling background or really know how to snatch something and dump someone. You rarely ever see it now unless it's someone who's competed or someone who is maybe an NCAA guy or an Olympic alternate or something rather. So it's just something that naturally comes to me. And I think it complements the card versus the other things that are on it, and it feels different.
Yeah, and throw in your character as well. It's such a cool, different, unique character. Obviously you got the look. It's one of those things. It's like, man, this guy's a 5-tool player. He can kind of go wherever he wants and lands wherever he wants, and he's going to intimidate people, and he's going to look like the way pro wrestlers should look. Not to say that not they all shouldn't look different or whatever, but it's just that old school kind of scary pro wrestler look that you think of when you think of pro wrestlers. That's kind of you. Am I right in getting that vibe? It's very intimidating to a lot of outside people looking in.
Well, hey, I won't argue with you.
It's just a cool, unique character. And if you're an outsider and you're watching you for the first time, how would you kind of describe the Killer Kross character?
I would say he's, I feel like he's really misunderstood. He's a guy who loves jazz, opera, the orchestra. He likes long walks in the rain. Perhaps sometimes those walks take place in a cemetery. But, this is 2020. You can't judge people. That's where he likes to walk. I would say that he's a lover of all things, a humanitarian. He's very charitable and loves poetry. But every once in a while, he forgets to take his medication. And then he shows up in places like the 2300 Arena, and he starts throwing people through windows and ladders. He starts punching through chairs. He becomes a larger-than-life character that people want to see. You could say that he's eccentric. You could say that he's very enthusiastic. A lot of people say that he's crazy, but he doesn't like that word. He finds that word offensive, and it's a form of harassment. And really what he wants is he wants unity. He wants everyone to be together all at once in one time, in one place, like one big happy family, so he could advance, attack, and annihilate everyone and wipe out the face of the earth.
Love it. That's a pretty good character, and you mentioned larger than life, it definitely kind of resorts back to that, and just to love the style and the kind of the way you go about the business. Also love the videos you put out and put together. Very creative and very different. Is that something that you always have in mind, that you want to be true to yourself, you want to be an individual, but you definitely want to be different than the crowd?
I don't necessarily go out of my way to be so different. I feel like it's just a natural course that my mind and imagination will kind of take me to, and then I develop and create things, and I take those presentations elsewhere. Like, I never really necessarily, from a character presentation standpoint, I never really looked at someone and say, oh, well, this person's doing that, I got to do something else. I never tend to fall into things that other people are doing. I've never even accidentally caught myself doing something that somebody else does. I think plagiarizing someone is a very deliberate thing, and rarely is it ever just a coincidence. I mean, every once in a while, we all watch the same movies and the same television. Maybe things overlap, but it's very easy to tell when you're ripping somebody off, or you try to take something that's not yours and make it your own. It's actually kind of embarrassing when the public sees it because they call you out on it. So, I mean, I've just never really, I don't really think too much about it. I naturally am creative in other directions, thankfully, from other people. So it just kind of falls in that lane, so to speak.
When you kind of look at the landscape of wrestling, but really you yourself, where do you kind of see Killer Kross? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Do you even look that far down the road? Like, where do you, because you always hear your name on the internet or see your name like, okay, this person's interested in him. Hunter Assembly's interested in this. This guy. You always hear and see and read that people are interested in you. Where do you see yourself?
I definitely see myself on your television, or possibly in a movie theater in 5 years, even in 10 years. I enjoy the entertainment industry for a variety of reasons. Obviously, the most obvious one would be that I like to entertain people. That's why I enjoy it. It's a platform for me to create things and show them to people and take them out of the headspace they want to exit. This is a world where everybody's got to go to work, and there's grievances and stress and whatnot. Entertainment is a source of relief, and I take great pride. And it's an honor for me to be a source of relief for people. I enjoy that, sincerely. I really do. So I'm going to stay in this industry one way or the other, and I foresee myself being in the wrestling business in 5 years, definitely. And I foresee myself being very fulfilled because I've learned a lot over the last 2 years, and there's been a lot of silver linings, and I'm definitely looking to exercise those to become a better version of myself for everyone. And I have to address this. You had mentioned Hunter or Triple H. I've never met him. I don't know where the story came up exactly first in the dirt sheets. I don't really pay too much attention to them. But I've never met him. I think it's cool, and I think it's kind of flattering that those stories circulate, but I'd like to meet him. If someone can make that happen, that would be great. That would be awesome. So
definitely read that.
You can have him on the show next time.
Yeah, definitely read that on the dirt sheets for sure. Now,
I've read a lot of stuff on the dirt sheets.
Yeah, not all of it's true. Yep.
Yeah, and it's like, again, I know it's not meant to be malicious or whatnot. It's fun to fantasize about that stuff, but unfortunately, that hasn't happened yet. So
now it's like, wind it down, hit the wind down button, head towards the finish line. Who were some of your influences? Because you kind of see glimpses of certain things, but who were some of the influences of Killer Kross?
Man, there's a broad array. I'll start initially in the wrestling business. I would definitely say Brian Pillman Sr. was one of the biggest inspirations to me from a character context and standpoint. And I kind of felt like Pillman was cut from the same cloth in nature of people like Bobby Heenan, Jerry Lawler. I would even go so far as to say Andy Kaufman, who's not mentioned that often in common era stuff. But the thing that all of those guys had in common, and Piper too, they had Jake the Snake. I'll get carried away. All these guys had something really amazing in common, which was that they all mastered the art of sincerity. You never doubted anything any of those people I just mentioned said, no matter how ridiculous it was. I mean, Piper could have told you that it was raining cats and dogs outside, and you would have called the pound and told them that they need to get the truck outside the house to catch the dogs and the cats. You know what I mean? Like, Jerry Lawler would have told you that Russia was attacking, you know, in the middle of Monday Night Raw, and, you know, you need to get into your bomb shelter, and you would have believed it. Heenan could have told you that Andre the Giant had a metal skeleton and he couldn't be defeated. You would have believed it. There's just, it didn't matter how far-fetched something they said was. You believed everything they said, and that is not something you can teach to people. It's really not. That is a very unique energy that they have, and when you see it and you hear it, you can identify it, but you can't necessarily sometimes place what it is. Those people were magic. And I've done my absolute best to try to find that within myself and put that into my work. And so far, without tooting my own horn, I feel like I've found a lot of success with conveying sincerity in my presentations. And I think a lot of times people don't even know what it is that they enjoy so much about what I'm doing. But I would definitely think sometimes I've gotten pretty close to talking about it, but spelling it out like that, I think that's probably one of the more enjoyable things that I'm putting out there for people. And my inspirations were definitely guys like that. In terms of in-ring, you know, offense and defense and such, I would definitely say Taz was definitely one of those people. Lesnar and Angle, Gary Albright, Dr. Death. I'll throw in two guys out there that probably aren't very well known. Volkan was one of them, and Takihara from UWFI, Kawada from All Japan. I mean, I have a lot. I mean, Sean O'Hare was another one. It's not totally obscure. Lots of people. I've never had a one go-to guy. I've never seen the sense in that. I mean, only one person can teach you only so much. I've had lots of broad inspirations, and then from film, I mean, Anthony Hopkins, Jack Nicholson, Tom Hardy, Christian Bale. I could go on and on. Brad Dourif. I bet you most people won't know who that is, but he's an absolute genius. I've had a lot of inspirations, and it's not necessarily things or people that I've attempted to pattern myself after, but these are people that captured me. And I really stress the word capture. I saw these people. I could not look away. I couldn't turn it off. And so I've always appreciated what they've been able to do. And so a few words, I suppose.
You mentioned some damn good guys. Gary Albright was awesome. Totally underrated. Obviously, Kawada, one of the best of all time. Can't go wrong with any of those legends. That's for sure. And Volkan, I mean, that's a rarity one. That's very cool. And very Sean O'Hare-like, which I'm sure a lot of people forgot O'Hare, but they shouldn't have. Totally underrated, awesome guy. But that kind of, like, you said, like, sincerity, but it's like, man, this guy is a little bit off kilter, but what he's saying, some of it hits home. Just very, very cool, and almost kind of a throwback a little bit to him. Not exactly like him, but I know what you mean. It's very similar in the sincerity, but it's almost like, wow, this guy is he crazy? But he's serious. But you know, you really kind of believe everything he's saying.
Absolutely, you know, and I've done my due diligence to put in respectful nods to those people without completely taking something that was theirs and attempting to make it my own. I've always worn that jacket as a nod to Sean O'Hare. I know a lot of people have worn the jacket. Chono was, in my opinion, one of the first people who was rocking the long leather jacket down to the ring. I know it's been done by a lot of people, but Chono and O'Hare were people that stood out to me for the long jackets and the long coats and such. And
just a random guy that I always hear talking about you. Great mind for the business, obviously. A Vegas connection because you've been out there a lot. Disco Inferno. I'm sure a lot of people may be shocked to hear that name, or maybe a little bit foolish or behind the curve. But he's very great mind for the business. Master of psychology. Always had a great punch. Is something I always remembered. What about Disco? Is he kind of a mentor, or is there any sort of relationship with Disco? Because he always is talking you up as like the next big thing.
I will tell you this. So the very first match that I ever had in this business was 6 years ago, and it was in Las Vegas at Sam's Town Hotel and Casino and Future Stars of Wrestling, and it was a battle royal. So once I got through the curtain and I walked onto the stage, the very first person that met me at the curtain, very first person, was Disco Inferno. He went out of his way, not even knowing who I was or where I came from, to give me critiques and to help me clean up and sharpen my work. Then he began to invite me into his classes where he was teaching. I never asked me for anything. You know what I mean? This is like, I'm not trying to like blow his image here, but he's one of the smartest people I've ever met, especially in general and in this business. And he loves to work people. People have no idea how smart that guy is. They have no idea. I mean, he's so comfortable in who he is in real life that he has no problem playing the buffoon, and he does it to undermine people. And it's just funny. He reminds me of the court jester. In a medieval setting, everyone thinks the jester comes in and he's the fool, and he stands in the middle of the room and everybody points and laughs. But the jester dictates who laughs in the room. He comes in and he plays the room like a puppet with strings and works everyone's emotions. That's Disco. The court jester, is the most powerful person in the room. And he did that in a building every single Monday night on Monday Night Nitro. He controlled the building. He made you think exactly what he wanted to about him. He made you feel exactly what he wanted you to feel. And here you were the whole time thinking that you were in control. And these thoughts were your own. They weren't. They were his. He's a genius. And he's been a mentor to me. I wouldn't be where I am right now without him.
What a connection. And you wouldn't think, like, Killer Kross, this big monster, is 5'2" a player. You wouldn't think it with Disco, but Disco really is that kind of quiet genius. And if you ever really listen to what he says about wrestling, he usually is, I'd say, 90% right about most of the stuff, if not more than that, about most of the stuff in psychology and what's not getting over and why it's not getting over. And he'll say something, and then weeks later you're like, oh, my God, he was right. I mean, right, he's always kind of hitting the nail on the head.
Yeah, I mean, I could go on and on about it. He's worked people so good into the conception that they have of him that they don't realize it's a misconception, and he thinks it's hilarious. And it kind of is, because I know who he is and who people think he is and how they perceive him. It's hilarious. He's completely done this all on his own, so it's very cool. It's been I could call him a friend for sure. I could call him a close friend, actually. That's very grateful for his guidance in my life.
And I remember it had to be about a year ago or so, the fans were arguing with him that he was dumb or something and saying he was terrible and all this other stuff. And I saw Jericho kind of stepped in and was like, are you an idiot? Like, do you not get the character? Do you not get what was going on? Do you not get he's the heel, he's the villain? And it was just great to see Jericho kind of, verbally slap the guy and kind of shoot him down. It's like, hello, like, the guy is a master of psychology. You don't even know you're being fooled.
Yeah, well, because he knows him. So he, you know what I mean? He
yes.
understands what's going on. So that's the power that Disco has. He could work people into a frenzy. He knows exactly how to push people's buttons, and he does it for fun. So.
Absolutely. Now, as far as you, do you have some favorite matches? Just kind of, I know it's been 6 years, but do you have some favorites looking back, or maybe even favorite opponents?
I mean, that changes every year because your work gets better, and then you find new people to work with, and we as professional wrestlers are always trying to surpass who we were the last time we were in the ring. I mean, most of us. Working with John Morrison has been great. I've worked with John for maybe 4 years now, if not 3. We've worked all over the world together, tagging with him or competing against him in the ring is always very good. I think we've always brought out a very aggressive side of each other, always been able to tell very good stories together, engaging things for the audience. And our compliments are, I guess I would say, our styles complement each other. We're both very different. So Eddie Edwards would be another one. Tim Thatcher and I had a match a long time ago, and it was very Japanese-based. I was very proud of that one. That was a good one. Jake Atlas and I competing at bar wrestling down in Los Angeles. I was very happy with that one. Darby Allin, him and I ripped it up in L.A. John Moxley, we did a UWFI sort of battle arts match in Las Vegas. That was very good. I was very happy with that. I've got a bunch. Douglas James, actually, recently, him and I had a very interesting confrontation in Defy. So
A lot of good matches and a lot of strong independent wrestlers that are still out there kind of making their way. And I know you're going to stay mysterious about it. You're not going to say where you're going to end up, but it is great to see you kind of all over the place and kind of making your stamp all over the world.
Well, thank you. I mean, and I'll tell you too. Like, I mean, you don't have to read a dirt sheet. I'll just tell you the truth. If any of them had asked me this, I would have told them this as well. But I don't know where I'm going to end up yet. And that doesn't bother me, and it shouldn't bother anybody else. This is a huge decision. This is a life-changing decision, and I enjoy the idea of commitment. So when I make the decision of which direction I'm going to go in, I need to be 100% committed in my mind, and I need to have everything the way I think it should be. And, yeah, I mean, I understand the speculation that people are making, and it doesn't bother me. I mean, it's cool. What's wrong with being the subject of conversation in the pro wrestling industry and sports? Nothing. I'm flattered by it and I'm humbled by it. But I mean, the truth of the matter is I don't know where I'm going next. I have ideas, let me tell you, and I'm in conversations with many different channels. But there's just such a massive amount of embellishment out there. Sometimes I feel bad reading it, but I'm like, just mind my own business and be over here. So.
It is crazy, and I guess you're right. I guess none of the dirt sheets actually are asking you. They're kind of assuming, or maybe making up, or maybe getting a source or something that claims that they know, but they don't know.
Yeah, I feel bad because, like, if they're paying that source, somebody's, I don't know, like, probably making a pretty penny off of it, and the source is wrong. So, I don't know how all that stuff works. I don't know. But, I mean, again, I don't take any offense to it, and I don't mean to be challenging for anybody. But the truth of it is that I'm still observing my options, and I'm sure anyone can understand that, again, a decision like this is something I really need to weigh in on. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Is there anywhere where you say yourself, like, man, I got to wrestle there, or like, oh man, I not just like permanently. I'm just saying, like, oh, I want to get back to Japan, or I got to wrestle New Japan, and maybe it's not somebody in mind. Maybe it's not like, oh, I got to wrestle Okada. Maybe it's just, oh, I really want to wrestle in Japan for New Japan, or I want to wrestle for All Japan, or no. Is that ever in your mind, like, I want to wrestle someplace?
I really want to. See, for me, that's an easy one. I would want to wrestle anywhere and everywhere. Because anywhere and everywhere is different. Every place you go will be different. It has a different roster. It's a different culture. It's a different place. It's a different presentation. I see fun in every single direction. I don't see a bad time in any direction. For me, I'll be over personal with you. I dictate the decision that I'm going to make based on how effectively I'm going to be able to take care of my family. I have a huge family. And without putting it all out there, man, people are getting old, and a man has to step up at some point in his life and decide how he's going to support the people that raised him. You know what I mean? That's where my mind is at. I make a lot of the decisions at this point in my life based on what the long-term support system is going to look like. All of my decisions are made from there. And it's easy for me because, like I said, it's fun in every direction. I'm going to have a blast any direction I go in. So it's nothing but good options, no matter which way I look at it. I just got to find the best option for everything.
I love it because one of those guys like you doesn't come along, all that often. Just the size, the look, the ability, the differentness, the uniqueness. So it's going to be interesting to see kind of where you end up. But this Saturday, you will end up at 2300 Arena, the old ECW Arena, the old stomping grounds at Philly, for MLW, for FIGHTLAND, wrestling the filthy one himself, Tom Lawler. So that is going to be the next stop, and hopefully some more matches to come in MLW, maybe even Tim Thatcher rematch. That would be pretty cool.
I think at this point anything is possible.
Now, as far as your plugs and getting your social media stuff out there, where can the fans find you?
I think the easiest way to get a hold of me, if you're not savvy with a whole lot on the internet, would just be killerkross.com. It's a website that I have up with all of my social media attached, from Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, you name it. On top of that as well, if you're just getting familiar with me, I give you the heads up. I have a YouTube channel, the Killer Kross channel. It's a channel that I built and managed. It has my entire career chronologically dated and logged into the channel. All of the content is free. Take advantage of it. Watch it. It's all there. There's over 120 hours of footage from vignettes, matches, highlights, you name it. Everything is on that YouTube channel, which is also attached to the website. Plus, there's a merchandise link on Pro Wrestling Tees. You may want to get a hold of some of my older shirts. I'm just saying. They might not be around forever.
Awesome stuff. As always, Killer Kross, 5-tool player. We're going to definitely enjoy seeing you at MLW this Saturday, but definitely enjoy wherever it is you may land. You said it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be great. And it's kind of cool to be a little bit mysterious about where that landing spot will be. I kind of, like that about it. It's a little old school, a little maybe Bruiser Brody-ish. You never know where you're going to end up. So that's pretty damn cool. And thank you so much for all the time you gave us. And hopefully we'll see, and hopefully everybody will see you Saturday in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania at the 2300 Arena.
Looking forward to it, man. Thank you very much for having me on the show.